Hello, everyone. Welcome to the protocol introduction session at the 2021 GLOBE annual meeting. Next slide. In this session, we'll have a variety of speakers from different areas of GLOBE. I'm going to get us started with an introduction to GLOBE, and then I'm going to pass things off to Todd Toth from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center to talk about our protocols. I'll then pass it off to Holly Cole and Kristen Weaver from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center /SSAI to talk a little bit about GLOBE Observer. Next, Dave Overroy from SSAI is going to talk a little bit about the website and some tech support. And then David Salisbury from the GLOBE Implementation Office is going to talk about using GLOBE data through ADAT and the visualization system. Finally, I will wrap us up to talk a little bit about Etraining and the protocol groupings at the annual meeting. Next slide. So if you're new to GLOBE, GLOBE stands for Global Learning and Observations to Benefit the Environment. GLOBE was founded on Earth Day in 1994 as an international science and education program. Through interdisciplinary activities and inquiries into various Earth spheres, GLOBE gives students a hands-on approach to the scientific method. Our protocols are developed by the scientific community and validated by teachers, so you can be sure our lesson objectives are scientifically verified. The images on the right-hand side of that slide are of some people from the GLOBE community from previous annual meetings over the past couple of years. Next slide, please. The GLOBE has a connection with NASA, and I'd like to expand on this a little bit more. GLOBE is dedicated to supplying the STEM professionals of tomorrow with the scientific knowledge necessary to tackle some of Earth's biggest mysteries. GLOBE is one of NASA's ground Earth observation programs, which helps scientists validate remotely sensed data that they gather from satellites. On the right side, you'll see two satellites that have a connection with GLOBE. The first one is the ISAT-2 satellite, which measures the height of the Earth. Tree height measurements that you take through GLOBE can be used to help validate some of the data that this satellite collects. The next one is the SMAP satellite, which measures soil moisture from space. The soil moisture measurements that you take with GLOBE can be used to help validate data from this satellite. There are also several NASA centers who are GLOBE partners. Next slide. I'm going to pass things over to Todd Toth to talk a little bit more about the GLOBE protocols. And Todd, I think you are on mute if you wouldn't mind coming off.
Sorry about that. Thank you. In the GLOBE program, we look at the Earth and we study the systems that make up the spheres. As far as GLOBE goes, we look at four main sphere areas or regions, those being the atmosphere, hydrosphere, biosphere, and pedosphere. Together, this is what the GLOBE program calls Earth System Science. And in these slides, I'm going to go over here with you quickly. We look at how the Earth is studied as a system, the GLOBE areas of study, protocols within those individual areas, the bundles, which are really kind of cool, by the way, that allow you to get in a greater in-depth study of particular systems and their interactions. We will also look at the GLOBE program grade level bands and the activities associated with those. But I will say right up front here that those are just suggestions. Many times, and I'll mention this later, that teachers can use, for example, an elementary activity into the 5th or 6th or even 7th grade. It depends on your students that you are teaching at that point in time. Another really important area I'm going to cover are the teacher's guides and the search element and the language and equipment used. Next slide, please. Here is just a quick representation of those four spheres and a partial listing of some of those protocols underneath each of those sphere areas. Again, the four main areas are atmosphere. Okay, that's kind of self-explanatory. Hydrosphere, dealing with water. Biosphere deals with a variety of topics that interchange and interact with those other protocol areas. And the pedosphere, which is soils. Next slide, please. The major cycles that connect the Earth spheres are the energy cycle and the water cycle. And there are some really, really important individual cycles we need to look at. And in GLOBE, two of those are the carbon cycle and the nitrogen cycle. And what I really wanted to impress here, and this is why we need to look at the protocol bundles. They give us a much greater in-depth look at the interactions between these spheres. And a good example of this is what scientists are looking for, okay? Where energy is stored, how it's stored, how long it's stored. And I gave some examples here of chemical energy, sea ice, ocean, carbon dioxide. And these fluxes, the changes, the in and out movement of energy and matter into those reservoirs is really important for scientific study. And within the GLOBE program, we have a great opportunity to provide that data for that research. So again, we're looking at energy in and out of these reservoirs that store the information we're looking for. Next slide, please. The first one again, and this is kind of a review for those of you who are familiar with the GLOBE program. Those of you who are new, this is just going to be a very, very brief introduction to those four spheres that interact together in what we call Earth system science. We're looking at the atmospheric conditions. And again, why is that important? Well, you look at the atmospheric conditions kind of impact what you find as far as plants and animals in particular areas, soil formation, atmospheric conditions. You're starting to look at climate, okay? That's certainly a big one right now with climate change, land cover, phenology, ecology, biology, hydrology, and the soils. These are the topic areas that you can touch within the atmosphere. Next slide, please. The aim of the GLOBE atmospheric protocols are to get the students involved. It's an inquiry-based, hands-on data collection where students are taking an active, very active look at what's happening in and around them in their environment. And that's one of the neat things, not just with the atmospheric protocol, but all the protocols. You have your students actively involved in gathering the data, collecting it, analyzing it, and looking at the big picture. What does that show you about your local environment or on a global scale? But you start to look at patterns that come from your data, and that kind of paints the picture, so to speak, of what's happening in and around you. Next slide, please. The next area or particular spot of study here would be the GLOBE hydrology protocols. And here you're looking at water, again, in different states in many cases, but what's happening with water in and around the entire globe. Where do you find water? Where is it in short supply? Characteristics of the water, the temperature, the pH, and so on, okay? All affect climate on a grand scale and on a local scale. Next slide, please. Okay, this is becoming a major headline even in the news right now, that water is in very, very short supply in many areas. And this is going to have a huge impact on large population areas. So with the GLOBE program, we're adding little bits and pieces of information for scientists to use on, is the water fit to drink? If you have water, can you swim in it and so on? Is it good for agriculture? So again, it's a very complex cycle here, the Earth's hydrology or hydrologic cycle, so to speak. And the protocols within this area really give the details that the scientists need. Next slide, please. Living organisms, the biosphere. Here, as I mentioned earlier, you have a wide variety of protocols. I mean, you're going things that look at seasonal change, land cover, land use, the amounts of living and dead biomass on the land surface. And in in reality, the biosphere, as I have here, is a worldwide sum of all the ecosystems. Everything impacts the biosphere and what we find in the biosphere. So it's a very important area to do these studies. Next slide. And along with this, the protocols, as I mentioned, a wide variety that you're looking at. And the reason we have this wide variety is because you're looking at the interaction of the spheres in a specific area, whether it be plants or animals, soil, that type of thing. One of the nice protocols we have that deals with a large area of the biosphere is land cover. And after hearing some things this morning, it's going to be interesting to look at the new, or updated, I should say, protocols and see how they address some of these regions. So again, biosphere is a big player in this grand scheme of what's going on around the world. Next slide, please. Soils, or the pedosphere. This, for those of you who are new, might seem like an odd term here, but we're looking pretty much at soils and the makeup of soil, okay? And the collection of things like soil temperature, the moisture in it, the chemical properties of this, what makes certain soils good to grow crops in, others not so much, which soils hold moisture for a long period of time, which ones allow it to drain straight through. These soil characteristics that we're going to look at in the globe pedosphere measurements, or protocols as we call them, allow you for a much greater or in-depth study of what's really important here on the surface of the surface, and that's good, healthy soils that allow us to grow, and some other things like just hanging on and acting as a reservoir for certain things like water right below the surface. The frost tube measurement also gives an important climate information about soils that have been frozen, and that are now thawing, and what we're finding in those soils. Next slide, please. This slide gives you a little more in-depth here and just kind of give you an idea of what you can do with some of the information you get in the pedosphere area. And it's the collection of soil temperature, moisture, and chemical properties, and what scientists do with it. I mean, it's great to say that we're going to be going out and collecting this data, but what happens to it and what's it used for? So I listed a couple of these just very quickly. That soil scientists use the data to better understand the potential for plant growth. Hydrologists use the data to determine potential sediment in water bodies. Meteorologists and climatologists use soil data in weather and climate prediction models, as soil can affect humidity and air temperature. Again, hopefully for those of you who are new to the GLOBE program, you're starting to see that I'm mentioning some of these things over and over again because of the active interplay between these globe spheres. And last, I have down here that biologists use soil data to understand its potential for supporting plant and animal life and environmental variables. Next slide, please. One of the newer features that I really like, both as a former teacher and someone who's been in GLOBE for a long time, because these bundles, to me, really are what GLOBE is about in studying particular areas in much more depth than just gathering air temperature or water temperature. These bundles give you a good picture of your local community, and then you can take it up onto a wider scale. And here are just some of the protocol bundles that have been put together so far. You have the agricultural bundle, air, ENSO, mosquito, ocean, rivers and lakes, soils, urban, water cycle bundle, air quality, and weather. And under weather, I just put together to give you some idea of what's included in these bundles. For example, the weather bundle has air temperature, pressure, relative humidity, precipitation, clouds, land cover, and water temperature. That gives you a much bigger picture and much more detail of what's happening in a particular place than just taking one or two protocols from a particular region. So I think, and I would really like to see a much greater use of protocol bundles within the GLOBE program, because I think it's going to provide a greater and deeper in-depth amount of data for scientists to use. Next slide, please. The GLOBE Teacher's Guide. I'll put my teacher's hat back on here. One of the things that I think makes GLOBE so appealing on the educational side here is that we help you get started. And the teacher's guide, to me, if you're brand new to Globe, that's a go-to document there. It will help you plan what you need for your classroom situations as far as materials, the time, how to organize it. It's all there. It even gives you the scientific background that you need to do a particular protocol, okay? Which again, for a new teacher, I think is excellent, because as a new teacher, you're trying to build that scientific knowledge base to use within your classroom and answer student questions. Globe helps you with that. It gives you a start, okay? And again, you have the lesson plans that you can use and modify to fit your particular time needs, topic needs, all of that. Resources and learning objectives, it's all there. So to me, if you're a new teacher or even an older Globe person and you're trying to get back into it, the teacher's guide is a go-to location. Next slide, please. One of the things I like about the feature here is the teacher's search guide. You can, and I just put some of it up here for you to look at, you can search by the actual protocol, okay? What you're looking for, whether it's data sheets or a learning activity, an approximate grade level, and I say approximate because if you're an educator, you know that things can be used at different levels rather than something specific depending on your students' learning abilities, time requirements, and even languages, and if it meets next generation science standards. And my comment there is, if you're teaching something in your classroom and a Globe protocol or topic matches it, it matches the next generation science standards and it matches your state and local standards. Next slide, please. Next thing I'd like to just briefly introduce is the Elementary Globe program. Next slide, please. This is an award-winning program that for elementary teachers, I think is great. And I'll preface that by saying that I usually go out to the University of Pittsburgh, I'm in Pennsylvania right now, and talk to elementary teachers. And many of them do not have a very strong science background. Well, the way that Globe approaches this with the storybook readers, I think is great, because the students are learning the science and math as they go through a storybook, learning about things, and there are hands-on activities for all of this. So again, it's a great way to get younger students started in science, and they don't even realize it because they're reading a story. They're looking at characters doing something that then they mimic and go out and do, and they're starting to learn how to gather science information, how to do math in a storybook fashion. And the activities are excellent. Next slide, please. Even with this, you have a teacher implementation guide that, again, as an elementary teacher, this is a go-to location. Again, it gives you tips on how to present the information, how to break it up, if you're chunking it, or the activities that go with it, when to include those. It is just a, here it is, try this, and it's a bunch of tips and tricks to use in your classroom. And as the last thing I have here that you look at, you have it in a number of languages, which really makes it great, especially if you're teaching younger children and English is not their first language. So Globe is looking out after you to not only implement this, but do it in a language that students might be more comfortable with. Next slide, please. And just to give you a quick idea, I threw this slide in, some of the different languages that the materials are translated in. Most of us who've been in Globe for a while are familiar with this, although the number of languages, I have to admit, keeps increasing, which is great because we're reaching out to more and more countries and more teachers and students around the world. If you're new, this looks pretty impressive, and it is. You're getting materials that students can do this atmospheric research or water research or soil research, whatever, in their own language, which makes the understanding much easier than having to learn the English and then do the activities. So I think this is a huge bonus to the Globe program. Next slide, please. One last item I'd like to cover, and that's the Globe Toolkit. Again, for those who aren't familiar with it, this is kind of a go-to document on the Globe website. It'll kind of tell you what you need to do the activity, okay, the equipment, what grade level it might work in, curriculum, that type of thing. And it's a great way to actually plan yourself if you're in an educational situation where you have to have a lesson plan or something like that and have all the nuts and bolts in order to do this in your classroom. So the Globe Toolkit is kind of a jack of all trades. You can find a little bit of everything in there about the materials you need, how long it's going to take, where you can purchase equipment if you need to, where it fits into your curriculum, all of that. So again, another go-to to me is the Globe Toolkit. And there at the top, I gave you kind of the address for it, or the breadcrumbs are there at the bottom where you do the Globe homepage, then do Globe research equipment. And I just happen to pick atmosphere on this one. So number of different ways to get to it. But again, very valuable part to doing Globe. Next slide, please. The support desk. These guys are great, okay? If you have a question, okay, there are two ways to get an answer pretty quickly. One, you can simply go to the support. They're on the menu bar on the main Globe website, okay? And that'll take you to a page where you can call the 800 number or use the email to get help. Again, as I mentioned there, sooner or later, you're going to need this. So make sure you know where to find it. You'd be surprised as you're doing Globe and you have a question, and it's really nice to get an answer, a detailed answer, or they'll walk you through it to make sure you solve the problem. So the people at the support desk are great. So again, something else I would really strongly suggest you know where to find when you're doing Globe. Next slide, please. The Globe Observer is another neat thing and an excellent part to the Globe program. So at this point, I believe I'm going to turn things over to Holly and to Kristen to walk you through a really, really neat hands-on portion of the Globe program.
Thank you, Todd. Hi, everybody. My name is Holly Cole, and I coordinate Globe Observer. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And I'll be presenting today with my co-coordinator, Kristen Weaver. Go on to the next slide. So if you haven't tried Globe Observer yet, it is the app of the Globe program. If you update your app later today or tomorrow, depending on where you are, you'll see that the Globe Observer app is becoming the data entry app as well for the Globe program, so that all of the protocols that you can do through Globe can be entered into the Globe program. The data can be entered into the Globe program through Observer. So later on today or tomorrow, you'll see that the data entry sheets for the atmosphere protocols show up inside your Globe Observer app. So the people who are trained Globe teachers or Globe members and have been approved by their country coordinators will be able to see and use the data entry tools within Globe Observer. Everybody else will still continue to see Observer as it is now, with the 4 citizen science protocols that anybody can see in act. Anybody in Globe Observer include clouds, mosquito habitat mapper, land cover, and trees. There'll be in-depth training on each of these later on today and tomorrow if you're interested, but you're going to be using your Can you hear me now? It's back. I'm sorry about that. Great. So there are 4 protocols: clouds, mosquito habitat mapper, land cover, and trees. These are available to anybody in any Globe country. And the training for each of those is within the app itself. So you don't need any particular special training. With each of them, you'll be using your smartphone camera to document that cloud types, and then you'll be taking pictures facing north, south, east, west, straight up and straight down to show us what you see in the sky. Mosquito habitats, you identify places where you find mosquito larvae, and then you take photos of those sites. You can sample the mosquito, the water, clip-on microscope with your smartphone, take photos of it, and then go through an identification key to identify that you have. With land cover, it's a lot like the globe site definition, where you go to a location, get the latitude and longitude, take pictures facing north, south, east, west, straight up and straight down, and then you tell us a little bit about what you see in each of those photos in terms of, is it trees, is it developed land, and so forth, following the globe identification system. And the last one, trees, is a little bit different in that when you're using your phone as a clinometer, you basically are pointing your phone straight up or straight down. Or I'm sorry, not straight up, straight down, that's the other ones. You're tilting your phone to capture the top and the bottom of the tree. And we're using the angle. So they're all fairly straightforward protocols, and the training itself is in the app. Next slide. Next slide, please. There we go. Oh, previous slide. Hang on one moment. So another new update that you'll be seeing in Globe Observer when you update it later on today or tomorrow is a connection to SciStarter. SciStarter is a citizen science clearinghouse, and the update will make us an affiliate tool, which means that citizen scientists can see their globe observations in the SciStarter dashboard, which means you can group your participation across citizen science projects. So if you participate in Globe and say iNaturalist or CocoRa's or any of the others that are also inside SciStarter, you can collate all of your observations together, which is going to be, I think, a really nice option for people. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And with that, I will pass the baton on to Kristen.
Hello, everybody. So I know that this is a question that has come up from some people about Globe Teams. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Globe Teams and how that works with Globe Observer. And then I will also say that I have a longer presentation about this that will be part of the community sessions on Wednesday. So this is just a taste, just kind of a little bit of what you can do with Teams, and you already got a little bit of that from Dave Overroy this morning, but a little bit more in the details about how to use referral codes and connect people to a team through the app and on the website. So you can see here that this is what the right-hand side is what a Teams page looks like. You can see a map of observations, the number of members, the list of the observations that have been taken, and then the data sites at the bottom. You can get to the list of teams on the main Globe website. You can see under the community tab and then Globe Teams. That's where you're going to be able to get to the listing of teams, and then you can look at your own teams as well as anybody else's teams. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. So this is how you would join a team through the Globe Observer app. You say you go to the settings menu there, and then go to join a Globe team. And then if you already, and I'll show you how to get this. If you already know your referral code, you can just type that in there. This is just a GIF that's going to repeat. But you can also, through the app, it'll take you to where you can search for teams. But if you've looked on the website, you found you've been given a referral code to join, that's how you can do it. Next slide, please. Here is how you can do it on the website. So again, this is the landing page of a team that I wanted to join, and there was that blue button there that allowed you to join the team and then type in a referral code. This is for a private team, which I think most of the teams that I've seen are. Open teams wouldn't even require the code. You would just be able to join, and you can see another team member is added. So those are the two ways that you can join a team with a referral code. Next slide, please. And then just to show you, if you are a team manager, this is how you're going to get to the information to be able to manage your team. So this is me logged in into a team that I manage. And you can see that there's the manage team button. That's going to allow you to see, to change the name of the team or the details of the team. It's going to allow you to see who has joined your team. Only the team manager can see that. Other people can't see who's there. They can just see how many members there are. And then you can also see the other red box there is the referral code. That's what you're going to give people to be able to join your team. So if you, the under community and teams, that's where you would go if you wanted to create a team. Once you've created your team, you would see this page. You can give that referral code to people that you want to be able to join your team. And I'll also just point out on the left there, you can see the navigation. That's the fastest way to get to your teams, to your different organizations. So there's a little expand menu on the new website that Dave was talking about this morning that expands this. And then under my organizations, that's where you're going to see whatever, that will be where you would see schools as well as teams that you're a part of. And that's a quick way to navigate to your team page. So go to the next page, please. And then I will point out that you can, there is already a way, I think there's some enhancements coming, as Dave mentioned this morning, but you can actually already have people join your school as a global observer. So you have, you as a teacher, you may already have your student accounts that you use. Join your school as well. This is the school where I used to teach middle school in here in Maryland. So you can see the referral code is in the same. Can't join through the app. If you want someone to join your school and have their data appear on your landing page for your school, you do have to join through the website. And I think I might have a second slide that shows what that looks like. I don't remember if I put that one in. So next slide, please. Yeah, so there's what it would look like if you wanted to join the school. You would have somebody log into their Globe Observer account on the Globe website, go to your school page, join school, and then enter the school referral code just like you do for a regular Globe Globe team. So the next, so that's just a taste of what you can do and how you join a team. If you want more, like I said, there's a whole session in the community session on Wednesday that has a lot more information. The last thing we wanted to leave you with is a short video about a Globe Observer where doing Globe Observer trees really changed his perspective on the world. And this is a compiled video from part of a session from the SIT-SciCon that NASA and SciStarter hosted earlier this year. He introduces himself, but if you want to go to the next slide and just play the video.
My name is McDonald Chirara and I'm from Zimbabwe, but currently I'm in South Africa studying at African Leadership Academy. So I've been part of the Globe Observer program, in particular the Globe Trees program. So what I basically do is whenever I travel or whenever I'm at school, when I see a tree, I just use the app-based tool to just take pictures of different trees around me. So whether it's a field trip, whether I'm just going anywhere, I just take pictures of trees. So I found out about this project about 10 months ago when I was attending this science competition, and one of my friends, my colleagues I met there, they told me that they were doing this cool NASA thing without them being a scientist, or they are just a student, but they are assisting NASA scientists out there. So I was like, what is it? And they told me about it, and it was just a simple application. And I found this very interesting and fascinating. Yeah.
So you've always loved trees, and this app just gives you a chance to participate in the science around them.
Yeah, just to add on what other panelists have echoed, is something really cool to know that the data which I'm recording is being compared to the data which NASA satellites are out there are recording. So it's something which makes me feel proud of myself.
As you should, absolutely. What has your participation in NASA Citizen Science Project enabled you to do that maybe you didn't think would be possible for you?
Mainly, my answer might be based on the previous question on how the project, what something I didn't expect. So mainly being part of the Globe Trees exposed me to the environment and how important the environment is to me and to the future generations. So it led me to look at the trajectory of my future in terms of what I want to study in college and my career path. So one of the major decisions I made was to consider minoring in environmental studies during this fall, because doing the Globe Trees program, I was able, every time I took a picture of a tree, I would question myself, what is the name of the tree? Does it enter the data? You have to enter you have to write about the environment. What are the conditions? Is it dry? Is it rainy? So all of those factors contributed to me being more exposed to my environment.
Right, and it's influenced your choice of your future direction and your future career, yes?
Yes, so this fall, if there's anyone from New York, I'll be joining Colgate University. So I'm going to be minoring. I declared a minor in environmental studies because of my exposure through the Globe Trees program.
Congratulations, that's a great school, and you will be surrounded by trees in upstate New York at Colgate. Absolutely. I'm glad you love them.
So that was the last from Holly and me, but I hope that I think that's just an inspiring story of someone who used Globe and Globe Trees to start seeing the world in a different way. So
My name is McDonough Chirara.
Next slide, who's next up?
Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Overroy, and I will be sharing my screen to give you a quick overview of some of the technology and features on the Globe website for those that are new and haven't used the Globe website very much before. So what you see here is the Globe homepage, and hopefully you've all had a chance to see that. But just to point out a couple things on the homepage, if you haven't noticed, right on the top are recent measurements. So if you're working with students and you submit your measurements, usually about every 10, 15 minutes, maybe even more quickly, you'll see the measurements show up here on the home page. So this cycles through measurements as they come in. It shows what's happening right now. You can even see the extreme measurements, coldest and hottest measurements of the day. You see a little time scale down here as they cycle through. News and events in the program, information about Globe. You hear the numbers of over 200 million measurements. So you can see the current number of measurements that have come in. And then down here at the bottom, it's kind of nice. You can pick any of the protocols and you can see who's been entering the most data in the last 30 days. So here it is, sky conditions, which is the clouds or humidity. And you can see the school, the teacher, and the country, and the number of observations. So it's kind of nice if you're doing this, you can enter a lot of observations and see yourself show up on the Globe homepage. This is a link to student reports, which a lot of teachers find useful, and students as well, to see what's going on in student research reports and get ideas for your students. Now, if I go back up to the top of the interface, as you move left to right across these menu items, it goes from about the program to how to get an account, how to get trained, where the workshops are, or to use the Etraining. If you want to do Globe, there's a lot of support here. Todd spoke a lot about the Globe Teacher's Guide, which, as you see, is broken down into the spheres that he went through. So if you want to access the Teacher's Guide, it's here. And the search that he mentioned is also here. So you'll see the search by the various spheres or grade levels or time requirements. So if you want just a one-time or a repeated activity, all these search parameters are here. There's something like 800 documents that are searchable and sortable by whatever it is you find most useful. Under Globe data, there's information on how to enter data And Dave Salisbury will be talking about how to pull the data back out of the system, and then information on the community and so on. So that's a quick overview as to some of the information on the website. In the earlier session, I talked about the new data entry system that's being released either later today or tomorrow, depending on your time zone. This is what it looks like on desktop, and it'll look very much the same when you're on your mobile phone as well. But if you click New Observation, you'll see currently Atmosphere is there. We don't have the other protocols yet, but you can choose any of these Atmosphere protocols. Todd mentioned the Earth as a System bundles, and you'll see those listed here. These are just the Atmosphere flavor of those bundles. So if you want to say air quality, you can just click this button and it will automatically select all the protocols that are associated with the Earth as a System air quality protocol bundle. Or you can just go in and say, I just want to do, we'll say air temperature and relative humidity. You can click continue. The system will automatically put you over your current location. If you're on a phone or if you're on the desktop, it'll put you over your school. You'll see all the sites that are in your area, and you can choose the site that you want to have this data associated with. It'll put in the date and time, and then you can put in your values. So in this case, air temperature and relative humidity. And I'll just put in some numbers here just to have it. Once you've entered the data, you get a review screen, which shows what you've just put in. So you can take a look and make sure you did it right. You can always click edit if you want, but if things look good, you can send your observations. It will put you on this screen and you can send your observations to Globe. And now my data has been sent to Globe. If you want, you can go back and edit and delete your measurements, or you can always create new sites. But the new system does make it very easy for you to create sites on the fly. So if you wanted to do your air temperature and you wanted to have a new site, you can just click on the place you want the new site and use this button here, new site location, and it'll automatically create the new site for you and you can enter your data. So it makes it pretty easy to do it and hopefully a little more streamlined in how you interact with it. So that's the quickie on the Globe website and how to do data entry. Now I think Dave Salisbury will be talking about how to get the data out of Globe. And you can skip those next two slides because that was part of what we were going to demonstrate. There you go. Over to you, David.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Hello, my name's Dave Salisbury. I work with GIO, and I was asked to give a little presentation on data access. And as you've seen from previous speakers, there's a lot is available, and that is no exception with data access. We have three main ways of accessing data, and they're both available, or three of them are available right there on the pull down list right there on the top tag. Next slide. The three main areas are the visualization system, which is very good for spatial recognition of where various data is. And we also have the ADAT system, which is advanced data access technology. And that gives you much better access to large volumes of data that you want to put in a spreadsheet and do your own analysis with. And then we also have the API, part of that pull down, and that's for advanced users who want to write programs that access the data in real time. Next slide. So, you know, it is a very, I shouldn't say it's a very encompassing system. And I want to encourage everybody, when you go to the visualization systems, to check out the FAQs, and we have some tutorials up here. We have a PDF tutorial and a PowerPoint, and they're both both have the same data in them, depending on which kind of application you want to read it in. You can bring in data from Esri. You can bring in data and put it into Google Earth. And those are also explained in the pull down, in some of the links in the pull down on that page. And I encourage everybody to always check out the tutorials because there's just so much there. Next page, please. Generally speaking, the visualization system when you start out is very simple. You just want to add your layers, which we'll explain a little bit here in the future. Set your date, and then a bunch of points will be coming up, and you just click on those and you'll see a nice summary of the data there. It's very spatially recognizable, so that's its main advantage on the visualization system. Next slide. Here's in the description of some of your various controls that you'll have. You can zoom in on the maps. You have a legend that lets you know what those colors mean. In this case, it's atmospheric data. You can select your types of maps as far as if it's Earth or maps, or a combination of them. And the stuff up there, that big menu there, upper left, is where you're going to do all your manipulation and selections. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that upper set. So you have your layers. That's where you get the protocols that you want to get data for. And you have your filters, which is which sites and perhaps which schools. You have multiple site plots. You can combine the data on various sites that you pick. There's your base map layers, language controls. When you first come in, you're always brought into the question mark, which is the tutorials. And again, I'll suggest that you give those a view. The last one with the little person on it, that's good for if you want to look at just your data and your sites. And that helps you filter that all out. Yeah, I guess that's all I want to say about that. Next slide, please. Once you get into the visualization system, I do want to point out that you'll pick a site. You can see data, see a graph of all the data for that site, and it's usually good for the last year. If you go, there's also a measurement. You can get the data counts for that site, and that's usually good for the last 5 years. So you can see how much data they have for that site. And I wanted to point out up the upper links where you have shareable icons. Those will give you a URL that you can give to either Twitter or Facebook, or create the link and send it to your friend, and that'll give you the URL for that specific pop-up window that's come up. And all the functionality of that window will be available to you or to the person you've sent it to. And yeah, next slide. Now on to ADOT, the Advanced Data Access Tool. This is more of the spreadsheet that we saw. And also it'll, the same sort of interface is good. You select your protocols and you put your filters on, and you'll be able to download large chunks of data and put it into spreadsheet form. You will be limited to only 1 million observations per download. Just in case that's a hindrance to you, you can do multiple downloads, just only 1 million at a time. And next slide. Might be going over here a little bit. Oh yeah, this is when you go to the data access tool, again, we have tutorials and we have PowerPoint presentations, and I'm going to encourage everybody to check those out. Next slide. This is giving you the menu that you can use. You can select your protocols. You can see the date range. It's all very pretty easy as far as getting what you want. Next slide, please. And you should always hit the apply filter, I should say, whenever you're doing stuff. Here's your selecting protocols. I picked out noons here because if you want to compare sites, it's good to compare sites data that was taken for everybody at the specific time of their day, which is noon for us. Next slide. I wanted to point out, as we were talking with some of the other that we've emphasized, you can now also download your data by team. So you can pick your partners, you can pick schools, you can pick teachers, and now you can pick teams, and it's right down there at that location. Next slide. Finally, we have the API, stands for Application Programming Interface, and that's for advanced users who want to write programs. Not sure I should go into it, but you will want to contact the Globe office if you want to use that as an input device. Not everybody can input, and also get data automatically. And I guess that wraps it up for me. And I shall have to turn it over now to Emma.
Great, thanks. Next slide, please. So earlier, Todd Toth talked a little bit about the various different protocols, and I think he briefly mentioned the Etraining. So Etraining provides the opportunity for new and existing Globe users to complete science protocol training at any time, anywhere. For a general summary of the Etraining, you can view the Etraining summary document. These various protocols are involved in each of the spheres, and this is just a short list of a few of them. This is not comprehensive. So if you'd like to get e-trained and right now you can't attend a workshop, e-training is a great resource for you. Next slide, please. So for the annual meeting, in order to become certified in the Globe protocols that are taught during the annual meeting, you must have a globe.gov account and complete the protocol e-training. More information about the requirements to become trained through e-training can be found on the website at the link given here. In these photos, you'll see some students and adults taking measurements for Globe protocols, as well as working with Globe data. Once you've taken the assessment test on respective e-training modules that are required in order to become trained, then you'll be able to enter data onto Globe. Next slide, please. So here's a bit more information about the protocol trainings during the annual meeting. At this year's protocol sessions are intended to be collaborative and interactive time with trainers in order for attendees to get a feel for various Globe protocols. The protocol groupings were created based on similarity, popular demand, and minimum equipment required. Please note that the registration for these trainings is currently closed. However, the protocol question and answer session on Thursday, July 15th from 9 a.m. to 9:45 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time is open to all attendees. Recordings of the protocol sessions will be posted as well. So the first grouping, which we called our beginner grouping, includes clouds, air temperature, relative humidity, and precipitation rain. This grouping isn't necessarily intended for people who are new to Globe. It can be open for anyone, but if you are new to Globe, this is a great place to start. The Globe Observer app will also be talked about in this grouping. The intermediate grouping will cover the land cover and tree height protocols. And the Globe Observer app will also be discussed in this grouping. Our third grouping is the experienced grouping 1. And again, this isn't necessarily for people who are experienced, but if you've been with Globe a little bit longer, this might be of interest to you. And it will include the mosquito habitat mapper and surface temperature protocols. Again, Globe Observer will be demonstrated in these. Our final grouping is the experienced grouping 2, which will encompass our carbon cycle protocols, including the introduction, standard site, non-standard site, and modeling. The carbon cycle protocols are relatively new to Globe, and so we're excited to be able to talk about them more at this meeting. Next slide, please. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining this session. We do have the protocol question and answer session on Thursday, July 15th from 9 a.m. to 9:45 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time for question and answer opportunity. Thank you again, and we'll see you at the next